Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from whatever altitude you are at. We are at 5,280 feet, Mile High country, where we anticipate you being in September of 2023 from Mile High 11. You know you want to rise up to go to riseuptomileHigh.com, where you can reserve your seats for yourself and your team. I am so thrilled to have as our guest on this podcast episode, Dr. Alasha Young, and she is a powerhouse in chiropractic, just starting out of the gate. I've known her for a while, actually known her since chiropractic school, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. But she will be presenting this year at Mile High for the first time. We got to see her present at a pediatric event back in Nashville, and she was phenomenal. So it's a real treat to have her at Mile High. She attended the University of Oklahoma and then moved on to Parker University and has a jamming practice, Young Life Chiropractic, and she's served in various areas from Dallas to Wichita, and we're going to have a great time, and you're going to have a great time listening to this episode. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, I'm so excited to share with you guys, and I'm so excited for September and get to go to Mile High and get to hear all the wonderful speakers and to also share my heart.
Well, I'm very glad you said that, to get to share your heart, because that's one of the things that we really look for both in this podcast that we do and also on the stage, which is when people really share their heart and soul relative to our principles and values. And I know you ooze that. So let's help people get to know you first a little bit. Tell me about your way into chiropractic. Now, I know you're from a chiropractic family. Not everyone listening may realize that. So tell us about your experience, how you found your way into chiropractic.
Yeah, so I grew up as chiropractic being the normal paradigm. I didn't know any difference, to be honest. When I got into OU, I was studying health and exercise science, and I always knew that I wanted to work with children. I had a passion for pregnancy, for kids with special needs. I was studying speech pathology at that time, and one of my good friends was going to go to med school, and we were sitting in a classroom, and we started talking about health and where health really comes from with all these different medical degrees and just everyone incorporating their thoughts. And I was listening to one of these people, and he was talking about, pharmaceuticals and drugs and how he's really into surgeries and all these things. And I thought to myself, I'm like, that's not what I feel. Like, health comes from within. And I realized at that moment, I was like, wait, I have a different paradigm. I have a different belief. This is not the normal, I guess. And so my friend Lacey, that is actually now a chiropractor in Tulsa, Lacey Neville, she looked at me and was like, let's go shadow a female chiropractor. And I said, honestly, I don't know a female chiropractor. I grew up around a lot of male chiropractors.
Oh, wow.
This is going to be shocking. I told her, I was like, chiropractic is kind of a male profession because that's all I knew, which is crazy. My dad, he said he graduated with 3 female chiropractors. Now, my graduating class was over, I think it was like 58% females. So a very different experience. So
Right.
we went and shadowed a chiropractor, and she was actually working with a child that had speech impediments and milestone delays, and it was just speaking like, this chiropractic philosophy that I knew, and it just hit me at that moment. I was like, wait, this is what I'm supposed to do, and not just serve children, but the whole family.
Wow. That's so interesting. As you know, and other listeners know, my wife's a chiropractor.
Yes.
And so she always says how when she was in chiropractic school, we were both in school at the same time. I was a few quarters ahead of her. But like, it was all male. Like, there were whatever, 3 females in her class or something like that.
Yeah.
And now Sherman, where we went, Sherman it's tipped over that it's more than 50% female.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting that when you grew up, that was the paradigm for you, that it was a male dominant profession. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and there's so many more females graduating now, and it's wonderful for both genders, for
Right,
everyone.
right,
But
right,
for what
right.
I do, I just love like the connection and the female energy that we bring into the practice. We not only we see about 40% kids, but we also see a lot of women in here, a lot of
Mhm.
males and grandpas as well. So.
Well, excellent, excellent. So then, talk about a little bit what it is like practicing and running an office as a woman. What is different about that maybe than what you saw growing up in the
Yeah.
practice that your dad ran? How does that different than the dynamic than you experienced?
Oh my goodness, if I could show you a picture, that would be amazing. But for instance, when I graduated chiropractic school, I had a vision of like what a chiropractic practice looked like. It was the brown leather chairs, it was, the certain boards, certain colors, and it was what I had seen in every practice. And so that's what I kind of started to do. And I was like, that's not me. Like, there's no way I would fully thrive in a practice like that. So in the building we're at now, like, we have the doors open today with chalk outside, bubbles going everywhere. Like, we have coloring sheets, there's toys everywhere. We have Disney music playing. Like, I want my practice to be a direct reflection of my energy and who I am. So that is very different than what the typical office I grew up seeing is. And then also, it's just as a female, and I'm pregnant, so I've also had to realize, like, I tried to do it all on my own for a long time, and I didn't want to associate. I was like, I can handle it. I've got it, and that's one of my faults is I need to be able to delegate things a little bit better, and I'm working on that. But I brought in an associate finally, probably 3 months ago, and it's the best thing I've ever done. And so now we brought one female in, and then we're going to bring another female in a couple months because it's worked out so well. So we're all about collaboration. And then we're about ready to move into a building that might have over 18 female providers in it. So
Oh, wow.
it's just been a continual growth from there.
So here's the thing. You had an inside out perspective.
Yes.
However, you didn't necessarily know you wanted to be a chiropractor, is what I'm getting. There was
Yes.
health and exercise science. You had a health bent, health,
Yeah.
health, health mindset in terms of I want to do something in healthcare. Correct me if I'm wrong. How did you end up actually shifting and say, oh, I want to be a chiropractor?
I think it's a moment when I realized how extraordinary chiropractic is. Like, for
Ah,
me growing up, like, oh, my all my friends got adjusted. That's just what we did. That was a part of our normal lifestyle. I grew up around chiropractic kids. Like, our lake house was, all these chiropractors. It's all I knew. And so when it hit me, I was like, this is something so special that not everyone gets to experience. And it drastically changed my health as a child. Like, looking at before chiropractic versus when chiropractic entered my life, my health completely changed. And so once I realized like how different that was than what the normal person experiences, that's what I wanted to provide for my community. So
so exciting, so
yeah.
exciting. So, and then, when did you find your love for caring for families in terms of practice?
Yeah. So I've always loved kids. I've always been drawn to kids. I was a nanny. I worked in a daycare for kids with special needs. I did OT previously. I've always had a heart for that. Um, but I didn't know that I loved pregnancy so much. And I think I had this envision of I'm going to have a pediatric only practice in school. I was like, I'm just going to see the kids. And then I realized, well, to support the kid, you've got to support the mom. That's that foundation for their health. Well, then if the dad is struggling with his health and his nervous system, then it's going to throw off the kid as well. And they feed into each other. And so, I slowly changed or fastly changed into I just want to see the child to I want to serve the whole family and making sure their health is really amplified.
So exciting, so exciting. And then when did you start getting focused on prenatal and pediatric care?
Yeah. So when I was an intern in chiropractic school, I had a couple patients that were pregnant that just started seeing me. And I really hadn't, I knew I was like, of course I'll see pregnant women, but I didn't know that that would be a specialty or that I have or really drawn to. And my sister was pregnant with her first during that time. And I got to see her experience. And it was the first time I really was connected with someone's pregnancy. And she had a pretty traumatic birth. And so getting to see her experience that and seeing that, how hard that was on her and what she went through afterwards and learning about prenatal care, I was like, there's a different way. Like if I can connect all the pieces and collaborate with the right providers and give them the right support, then we don't have to have these traumas through birth. And then we all have healthier, happier babies as well. And so I think it was really, my sister's experience, which was really hard on her, but it really pushed me to learn more about the birth process and pregnancy in general. And
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, and then everything works, life gives you things that are there for you. My first internship was actually in a family-based practice, and one of the midwives came to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to start adjusting during labor?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" And so I started working at 2 birthing centers and adjusting during labor, and then also having hospital rights. So I adjusted during labor there. So it kind of just I got thrown into it a little bit.
Well, that's all very exciting.
Mhm.
Now, you're how many years in practice?
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And and by the way, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. Is it, I should have said it before I did before. Is it Alasha?
Alasha, yes.
Alasha, okay, so I got it
Yes.
right. So
Yeah.
actually, it's so interesting as we were saying before we started we're doing the episode here. We actually met because I spoke at your Parker seminar ceremony when you were a student. So it's like a flashback because I met you back then, and I'm very excited you being presenting at Mile High. Now, fast forward 4 years into practice. What's one of the things that you've seen that really excites you when you're caring for people or at the end of the day?
Ooh, I mean, there's a lot that excites me. But I think it's seeing the switch in people. Like I can see when people come in here and their light is literally so dim and I can see it and that they're struggling. They don't even have to tell me. I'm like, I see it, I know. And then seeing them walk in here and it's like this radiating feeling. And I'm like, I can see that change in you. And then just seeing their life change. And they come in here one day and they're like, I met this amazing man, or I got the job of my dreams, or I'm just a happier person and they're making better choices. And so seeing that change, in people is really cool.
You know what? I have to chime in.
Hmm.
Um, what you said was something that I say extremely frequently, which is because a lot of times, maybe you've had this experience, practice members or people that we're interviewing or new team members will say to me, "What do you love about what you do?" I mean, people that have interviewed as CAs have asked me that. It's
Yeah.
very interesting that I've had CAs ask, potential CAs ask me that frequently. Uh,
Yeah.
they said, "What do you love about what you do?" And I've said the light bulb moments, the moment where something changes that they get it. Either it's something that changes their body physically that they're
Yeah.
excited about, or you see them get a paradigm shift. And like
Mhm.
that moment where a light goes on that this is, that they're looking at the world differently or they have a different experience with their body is the moments that I call them light bulb moments. I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
else calls them that, but that's kind of what you said. I
Yeah.
love it.
And I had never even thought about that. When you asked me, I was like, I don't know. There's so much that I love, but that really is. And no one else really gets to experience that too.
Right.
Like as chiropractors, like we get to see those changes in people. And so it's very cool.
And also, it's kind of like you don't know when they're going to happen. And like it'll
Hmm.
just be a random thing. It's like somewhere in the day there'll be a moment like that you're like, oh, this is why I do this, and it lights up even more. So
Yes.
super exciting. So now you've also people have commented to me, and you did a presentation on this in Nashville at the Warner's pediatric program about how you're impacting your community and attracting people through social media. Can you share anything about that, your experience with that?
Yeah, so we started whenever I was in chiropractic school. I made an Instagram platform just to share my journey and to get practice and just kind of practice putting information out there. Then for my friends and community, and as an intern, and then that changed into when I opened up my own space. We continue to grow on Instagram, and so I've got a lot of tips and tricks for that. But it's kind of just like organically happened too. And I think Instagram and social media is such a great platform to share your heart and to speak how people can see into your practice before they even come in. To the point where I sit down with a consultation for someone and I start to tell them about the nervous system or what we do, and they're like, I know. I already saw your Instagram. I've been watching your videos. And I'm like, okay. So it makes my job so much easier. And then they're able to share that content as well. And those ripples are able to be made even farther. So,
That's so exciting and that's so fun. Um,
yeah.
yeah, truly. And now also another thing is this is your first kid that you're
Yes.
pregnant now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, especially for the growing women chiropractors, the growing population of women chiropractors. What's it like being pregnant and coordinating a practice?
Yeah. So I've had to learn to delegate things. Because like I said earlier, is I'm that person like I can do it. I want to do it all. And went from, starting out with, one CA until a couple of years ago, we got two CAs and now I have three CAs. And so having like an office manager has really helped me with delegation and just a sidekick. Um, but there's a time where, a lot of patients ask me, they're like, how long are you going to continue to practice during pregnancy? Like a lot of people wouldn't be able to do this. And I say, I'm listening to my body. My body is powerful. It knows what it's doing, and just knowing that, of course you want to listen to your body during pregnancy and be careful, but that the body is so capable of doing what it's always done in serving your community. So it's been a lesson to listen and maybe slow down a little bit, but it's also so fun because now I get to share like my experience with other mamas too.
So exciting, so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, anytime someone's in practice,
Yes.
they will go into this world that like, oh, I actually have to run a business. It's all fun that I'm learning how to adjust people and talking audio with people, but then there's a business and things I have to do. That's a different world. And you grew up with a little bit of that, probably,
Yeah.
my kids had some exposure, but only so much as compared to actually doing it. What are
Yes.
some of your experience with the ups and downs of practice?
Oh gosh. So one of my friends that's a chiropractor down the street, we went to lunch a couple weeks ago and we were talking and he was like, you've been through so much in the past 4 years of practice. Like, I can't believe you've only been practicing for almost 4 years. I was like, what are you talking about? And he starts naming off stuff. And he was like, yeah, that sucks. Like that you lost your first practice or, you lost your staff at the same time or, and just all this stuff, these things that happen. And, I told him, and I'm really big on this, is the good luck, bad luck, who knows? Like, there's a whole story, but a year and a half into practice, my office flooded due to an ice storm. And so we lost
Wow.
everything. And that office was about 500 square feet. We needed more room, but I was too scared and I'm stuck in a lease to open up my new space and to expand. And so that accident pushed me to grow into a new space and to get a new space. And we moved in 2 days, and then that's the space that we're in now. So, some people say, oh, that's bad luck, but it actually ended up being really good luck, and it turned into something else. And then now we're in this space, and it's 20 minutes up north of where we were previously, which in Oklahoma City, that is a long way. And so now in a couple weeks, we found a new space that's 7,200 square feet. And so we're going to move into that space and have different providers in there. And so it's just been like this constant up and down. And then, but always knowing like things happen for you, not to you. So
Yes. So clearly you have a little bit of mindset that
mindset
you
is
that
super
that
important.
that you gleaned through your childhood and into chiropractic, because that
Yes.
is very important to make sure that you own and realize. And that helps you navigate so much more. And it's also a Parker principle, right?
Yes.
So in terms of that. So what if you were talking to a chiropractic student or a new grad, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. So I would first tell them what we talked about earlier, social media. Make sure you have your platforms and your connection. I'm also big on people like, oh, patients come through social media. We're strictly referral. And so, yes, we have our social media platforms, but it's also me going out into the community and learning about different providers or different businesses. And it wasn't just having a lunch meeting with midwife one time. It was going to her office, giving her information, going to lunch, following up in 2 weeks, following up in 2 months, getting to know her practice. When I first moved to Oklahoma City, I probably went to lunch with every midwife that was
Oh,
around here
wow.
because I wanted to get to know them and I wanted to be able to refer my patients to them. I also went to lunch with pediatric dentists as well, with lactation consultants, anyone that was kind of like-minded and I knew my community was going to want to work with, nutritionists, functional medicine doctors, and I just kept reaching out and kept making those connections and keeping in my mind, yes, I want them to get to know our practice because I truly believe we have something special, but I also want to get to know what they're about. And so I would tell students to get out there. Like, it can be really scary. I'm really introverted, honestly. And so it's really out of my norm to just like walk up to a building or give someone a phone call. But it's not about me, it's about my community. And so in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm doing this for my patients. I'm getting uncomfortable for my patients and my community. So social media, getting out there, and then also making your office a reflection of you. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, my dad was sitting in my practice one day and it's Christmas time and there's like decorations everywhere. And when I say decorations, there's these probably 18-inch balls, ornaments hanging across our office. There's just strobe lights everywhere. Like, it looks like Christmas threw up in here because we want that for families and we want people to walk in and be like, wow, and for kiddos as well. And he's just sitting there shaking his head. And he's just like, what is this? But that's who we pull into our practice. And so making your practice a direct reflection of you is so important.
I got to tell you, you sound exactly like my wife relative to the holidays, because the office is like all of a sudden it looks like, oh wow, it really is Valentine's Day.
Yes. Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So then one thing more. What does it feel like being, and I know I can answer this as well, being a second generation chiropractor? How's that experience been for you?
I feel very thankful, to be able, I see chiropractic as a gift that was given to me as a child, that changed my health drastically. And so I've always had this mindset of like, I am so thankful that I got chiropractic. And so I've used that in my experience and my journey to help other families. And so it's amazing. And also the philosophy that comes with chiropractic as well. It's helped me through every single stage of life. And even when I didn't know it was chiropractic philosophy, I'll be reading a green book. I'm like, oh, that's where my dad got that. That makes sense. But it's just such a cool feeling. I love it. And something that people always ask me, they're like, oh, did your dad push you into chiropractic? And actually, he kind of did the opposite. He never asked any of us, like, hey, do you want to be a chiropractor? You should be a chiropractor. He never pushed us. He allowed us to find it for ourselves. And I'm so thankful for that. Even when I called him and told him, like, hey, I was nervous because I didn't know if he would be excited. I didn't know how he'd feel. but I was just nervous to tell him. And I called him. I was like, hey, what do you think about me being a chiropractor? And he got real silent. He said, yeah, I think that'd be great. If that's something you're interested in, I think you should go shadow some chiropractors and, and see what you think. And I thought it was a really strange conversation. I was like, is he excited? And then my mom later on told me that he was so excited, but he wanted me to truly want this for myself. And I think that's really important, that you allow your kids to find, their calling, and, and if it's chiropractic, wonderful, but to never push them into it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I've had that experience on both my parents as well as my kids. So I know exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking about. So you excited to be at Mile High in September?
I am so excited. It's going to be great.
Do you know,
Yes.
have any insights? I know it's really, really early. Do you have any insights on what you'll be sharing?
Ooh, I think I've worked on a couple different things. I think I'm going to share like building my practice from the ground up, because that's the biggest question I get. And it's not for everyone, but I by myself, coming from a small time of practice, seeing 450 kids and mamas a week is it's a lot for just opening up. And so
Right.
it's like, well, how do you do that, and how do you continue to stay happy, and how do you listen to your heart? And I think I want to share a lot of tips and tricks of how to build that community and space.
Wow, excellent. Well, we are so grateful for you taking your time to be on this episode, and also so grateful to have you travel out to higher ground for Mile High in September. And
Yeah.
we look forward to seeing you there. And thank you so much for changing spines, lives, and minds in your community and around the world through influencing others both in social media and through, I know you're having an impact on other people outside your four walls in your community, and through sharing at different places. So we're grateful for you, and looking forward to seeing where you continue to go and grow. So thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And everyone who's listening, we look forward to seeing you in September on higher ground at Mile High 11, September 21st to 24th. And keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.